pollution became a concern during the 1950s. Marine pollution occurs when harmful chemicals, particles, industrial, agricultural, and residential waste enter the ocean. Most sources of marine pollution are land-based and often come from non-point sources, which are water and air pollutions from diffuse sources such as agricultural runoff, wind-blown debris, and dust. Many scientists believe that oceans were so vast that they had unlimited ability to dilute and reduce the pollution. There are many different types of pathways of pollution, which include direct discharge, land runoff, ship pollution, atmospheric pollution, and deep sea mining. Direct discharge is when pollutants enter rivers and the sea directly from urban sewerage and industrial waste discharges, which sometimes form of hazardous and toxic waste. For example, around 60% of the wastewater discharged into the Caspian Sea is untreated. In Latin America and the Caribbean, the figure is close to 80%. In large parts of Africa and the Indo-Pacific, the proportion is as high as 80 to 90%. Land runoff is the flow of water that occurs when excess stormwater, meltwater, or other sources flow over the Earth's surface. Surface runoff from farming, as well as urban runoff and runoff from the construction of roads, buildings, ports, channels, and harbors, carry soil and particles laden with carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, and minerals into the ocean. For instance, in Southeast Asia, more than 600,000 tons of nitrogen are discharged annually from the major rivers. These numbers may become further exacerbated as coastal populations are depicted to increase from 77 people per kilometer to 115 people per kilometer in 2025. In Southeast Asia, the numbers are much higher and the situation is more severe. Wetlands and mangroves are also declining rapidly, typically by 50 to 90% in most regions in the past 4 decades. As far as ship pollution, ships can pollute waterways and oceans in many ways. Oil spills can have devastating effects. Oil spills are probably the most sensitive events of marine pollution. Much of the oil in the world's seas comes from other smaller sources, such as tankers discharging ballast water from oil tanks used on return ships. Leaking pipelines or engines' oils disposed of down sewers also contribute to that. Ballast water taken up at sea and released in port is a major source of unwanted exotic marine life. Discharge of cargo residues from bulk carriers can pollute ports, waterways, and oceans. Ship pollution can also cause invasive species, such as the zebra mollusc, to take over once occupied areas and facilitate the spread of new diseases by introducing new genetic material. Another pathway of pollution occurs through the atmosphere. Atmospheric pollution is wind-blown dust and debris, including plastic bags, are blown seaward from landfills and other areas. Another problem area with atmospheric pollution is the climate change. Rising climate change is causing the ocean temperatures to rise, which is also rising the levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. While the carbon dioxide levels are rising, this is causing an alteration in aquatic ecosystems and fish distributions, which we will learn about later. Deep sea mining is fairly new, and it takes place on the ocean floor on vents that create sulfide deposits, which contain many different types of metals. Deep sea mining can cause sediment plumes, which have the biggest impact on the seafloor. Plumes are caused when tiny fine particles are dumped back into the ocean, creating a cloud of floating particles in the water. Plumes can also impact zooplankton and light penetration, which can cause algae to form and expand exponentially. There are also different types of pollution: acidification, eutrophication, and plastic debris. Acidification is due to the levels of rising carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. This is causing certain structures made of calcium carbonate to become vulnerable to dissolution, which in turn affect coral and the ability of shellfish to form shells. Large proportions of hard corals have died. For example, in the St. Anne Marine National Park in Baie Terre, more than 95 of the corals were dead by 1999. Many dead reefs were overgrown with algae caused by higher nutrient content near developed areas and surface runoff of silt, which apparently reduced colonization rate substantially. This graphic shows the coastal areas with the greatest population densities are also those with the most shoreline degradation or alteration. The graphic shows the proportion of the population that lives within 100 kilometers of the coast for each of the world's nations. It also shows the locations of selected coastal cities with a population of more than 1 million people. Eutrophication is an increase in chemical nutrients in an ecosystem. This relates to marine pollution because rivers empty into the ocean, and when they do, they carry many chemicals used as fertilizer in agriculture, as well as the waste from livestock and humans. This causes a lack of oxygen and severe reductions in water quality, fish, and other animal populations. These excess nutrients can spawn massive blooms of algae that rob water of oxygen, leaving areas where little or no marine life can exist. Scientists have counted some 400 such dead zones around the world. Plastic debris is what marine pollution is mostly composed of. The massive plastic debris consists of plastic bags, six-pack rings, and other forms of plastic waste which causes danger to wildlife and fisheries. Ocean wildlife can be entangled, suffocated, and ingest the plastic that circulates in the ocean. As the population of these animals decrease, there will be less food for predators such as tuna and whales. The plastic accumulates because it isn't biodegradable like other substances. Other dangers include the plastic leaching out chemicals and colorants that have been linked to environmental and health problems. In this picture, you are able to see that turtles can easily be entangled in discarding fishing nets. They also mistake plastic bags for jellyfish, which are their favorite food. This image shows the trash that litters the water of a fishing village on Boni Island in the Niger Delta. This region of Africa was supposed to be transformed for the better by the discovery of large oil reserves. Pollution, depleted fisheries, and environmental degradation from oil industry has worsened the area. A great example of plastic debris is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is an assemblage of marine debris in the North Pacific Ocean. Marine debris is the litter that has ended up in the Pacific Ocean, which stretches from Japan to the west coast of North America. The North Pacific Subtropical Gyre confines the entire garbage patch. A gyre is a system of ocean currents formed by the rotation of the Earth and its wind patterns. The circular motion of the gyre traps the marine debris, which is why the garbage accumulates. Currently, there are many oceanographers and ecologists that are researching this problem. They recently discovered that about 70% of marine debris actually sinks to the bottom of the ocean, which means that the sea floor of the garbage patch is actually a trash mound as well. The patch is also very harmful to the marine life in the gyre. Seals and other mammals are getting entangled in plastic fishing nets, while loggerhead sea turtles are mistaking plastic bags for jellies, as I showed you earlier. Trying to clean up the marine debris is not an easy task, therefore not one country will take responsibility for the garbage patch because it is so far from any country's coastline. There are international organizations devoted to prevent the garbage patch from growing any larger. Charles Moore, who initially founded the garbage patch, created his own environmental organization to help bring awareness to people across the world. This image shows the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. The garbage patch is actually two distinct collections of marine debris bounded by the massive North Pacific Subtropical Gyre. While there are many solutions, the first solution is that human population finds a way to reduce their ecological footprint, which essentially means that we just need to pollute less. Trying to achieve this will require a social and political will. People need to become aware of this problem and know the harmful effects of marine pollution. The human population needs to respect and lessen their abuse on the environment. Research on marine pollution is also a critical aspect of lessening the waste in the ocean. In order for the human population to be aware of the problem, scientists must research the dilemma and address it with the world. Without the appropriate awareness of marine pollution, the issue will never be resolved, and the marine pollution will continue to get worse and worse.